From the headquarters of Team Cowboy, coming to you all the way from Anderson, South Carolina, it's the Finance Cowboy Show, where we talk about why real estate is boss, how the average everyday person, whether you work a full-time job or maybe you're raising a family, can achieve wealth through real estate, and how the Joneses, you know those people that you've been trying to keep up with, they're actually broke, and we're going to give you a new source of inspiration to look at for what real wealth looks like. We're going to walk you through how to find rental properties, how to analyze them, obtain funding, manage those properties, and ultimately scale your way to life-changing wealth. I'm your host, JD Sustar, and I went from being in over $100,000 in consumer debt when I graduated college to now being a multi-millionaire in just a few short years through real estate. And this show exists to teach you the principles, tips, and tricks that I used and still use today to build generational wealth through good money habits and real estate so that you can implement them into your life and experience the time and financial freedom that we all long so strongly for. So, folks, let's get this party started. All right, I think a good place to start is talking about how we went to high school. I went to high school with John. He's a little bit older than I am. But we went to high school with a movie star.
Yeah, that's right. We did. We did. Anderson's own.
Yeah, most people can't say that they went to high school with radio, but we can. You know?
And Jared, I don't know, like, because I know I went to football camps and stuff in the summertime in high school. I don't know if baseball was this way. So it was really cool because obviously loved radio. Unfortunately, obviously he passed away a few years ago, but the only thing was anytime I went to a football camp, the minute they knew you went to Hannah, you had a nickname for the week, and it was radio. So like, I don't know if that ever happened with you at your camps, but like, it was always kind of the part of the deal, you know. So because the movie,
still call him that.
Yeah, there you go, exactly.
100%. When I got to college, my assistant coach called me radio the entire 4 years.
Absolutely, because like that was what people thought of when they think Hannah or Anderson, South Carolina.
Yeah.
And it was really cool. So they actually filmed that movie. I think it was 2003, maybe. It was either my freshman or sophomore year at Hannah. And it was really cool because one of our pep rallies, this went before you got there, we had Ed Harris and Cuba Gooding Jr. actually come to the pep rally, which was like awesome, you know. So that was definitely a unique time to be at Hannah and be able to be there with radio. And the legacy that kind of he left was pretty special.
It was awesome. I remember it. I would have been in middle school at the time. I just remember, because around here there's not much to do. So
that's right.
You went to the movies
on
the weekends, and they had Cuba Gooding Jr., Ed Harris, and all those guys at Amstar for a big premiere one night.
You're right.
It was wild.
I've forgotten about that.
Yeah, it was wild. I got to tell my radio story, and God rest it. So I actually used to live by him. So before we moved here, where they rebuilt his house, was like 4 houses over.
That's right. Okay.
And so I, first day, probably in PE, freshman year, I go in, and he was always in PE in the morning.
That's right. Yep.
Always in the gym.
With Honeycutt.
Exactly. With Coach Honeycutt. And then he would go to lunch and help with trash and janitorial stuff. And then he would just walk around in the afternoons, all the classes. And so I'm a freshman. I'm like, this is so cool. There's radio. He's in the gym. I go and I shake his hand. And after I shake his hand, I look, and there was a piece of toilet paper on my hand.
Yes!
So I said, you know what? I learned my lesson. I love him. I'd give him hugs and bumps from that day forward.
Never shaking his hand again.
Never shook his hand
Love
again.
it. Hey, here's the funny part. He knew exactly what he was doing.
Oh, yeah.
He was out. He got you.
Yeah.
He got you.
He knew exactly. He would always ask, hey, you see my movie?
Yep, that's right. That's exactly right. No, it was cool. It was definitely a neat time to be there, you know, at the same time when all that was going on. And I still see it come on TV every once in a while, and it's kind of need to go back and watch it and sort of.
What's the story? Like, how did this?
How did
it get famous?
Well, so essentially, and Jaron, you may have to jump in here, but I think it was maybe in the early 70s because I know when my mom went to Hannah, and I think she graduated in like, I don't know, maybe 73, somewhere in there. But he was already at Hannah, so it started out when Hannah was, or maybe it was Old McCants, and he would kind of come around football practice. He lived somewhere over there behind the school, and one of the coaches really just took him in. And I mean, for basically 40 plus years, you know, it kind of became more and more that he would get closer to the program, closer to the school, and eventually, like, he was essentially a student, you know, and he was treated. He's always a junior because he never wanted to graduate. So he asked me, what year are you? I'm a junior because he never wanted to graduate. And so it was kind of neat. I went to his funeral and over the Civic Center, And it was kind of like, hey, radio finally graduated, So, but it was
sweet.
really pretty cool.
Yeah, it's an amazing story. It's Coach Jones.
Coach Jones, that's right.
Was the one who took him under his wing, and to the day that radio passed away, so I would go on little jogs or walk on Sunday morning before church. Coach Jones would be over there every week.
Wow.
You would see him. Coach Jones drove this minivan.
Yeah.
Probably still does. And he'd pick radio up, and I don't know if he'd take him to church or they would just go hang out.
Wow.
But they were buddies until the day
that's incredible
that he passed away. And it was a big deal.
It was special.
When we lost him around here.
It was. It definitely was.
They did. You had it at the Civic Center. Then they did a whole parade type thing at the high school. Where they drove him around the track.
They got a statue out there at the stadium still of him, which is pretty cool to kind of cement his legacy over there.
Yeah,
that's
it's really cool.
It's cool.
Well, we're excited to have John Wright on the podcast with us. He's done a lot of cool things and is still doing a lot of cool things. And, looking at sports and how that's had a very big impact in your life. Yeah. And he played football at T.L. Hanna, went on to play at Clemson, runs a successful commercial brokerage here in town, and his own county council. So we'll try to unpack all of that.
Yeah.
But we'll start back in the younger days. Like how did you develop to who you are now?
So I think I give my parents a lot of credit, because I think especially as I got older and being in a locker room with different guys, and you started to see how important the home support system really was. And, I had a lot of good friends that didn't have that same kind of support and a lot of teammates that didn't. So probably something that I took for granted early on, but I think as I got a little older, I really developed an appreciation for, my dad always was, he was one to very much push me in a very positive way, and expected a lot and encouraged me to have big vision and big goals, but also with the understanding like you can do all that as long as you got to put the work in to follow through with it, right?
Sure.
And so I was very fortunate in that regard. And then, my mom was always very supportive. She did not really like football, honestly. She, because I have two older sisters. So my dad played football. We were talking about this earlier. He played football at University of Tennessee at Martin. He's in the Hall of Fame up there. And so I always wanted to play football. And he would not let me. I played baseball, soccer, basketball, wrestled, all those kind of things growing up. But my dad was very adamant that you were not going to start playing football until the 7th grade. And it used to drive me nuts because I'm like, 4th grade, I want to play football. Nope. 5th grade. Nope. 6th grade. Come on, Dad. 1 year early. Like, let me play. No. And he was very adamant about this on a couple of different fronts. And it was, number one, kind of the injury, and you don't know what kind of coaches you're going to get in Little League football with full pads at that age. And the other thing, which I didn't understand until later on in playing, but it was the burnout aspect. I knew a lot of friends, and Jared, you probably had the same thing with baseball, that like they started really young in football. And they were good players. They got to 8th, 9th, 10th grade, and they were just done, And so looking back now, I was thankful for that. Something else I'll tell you, if I can jump ahead a little bit.
Yeah, sure, go ahead.
Because I think it is imperative as to who I am in a lot of ways. My dad was very big on like, never quit. Like whatever you do, you're not going to quit. And I can remember baseball, you'll appreciate this being a baseball player. I always liked baseball, okay. I didn't love it. Yeah. And so, T-ball, coach's pitch, they used to do machine pitch. I don't think they do that anymore, but even machine pitch.
Yes.
And so I was, God, it was like, so it was my first year not playing like coach's pitch. I was playing machine pitch, and I hated it. Like that's when I decided like baseball ain't for me,
Yeah.
And I remember getting ready to go to a practice on a Sunday, and I told my dad, I was like, man, I just don't want to play anymore. And he's like, okay. He was like, but you're not going to quit. And I'm like, what do you mean? He's like, no, you're not going to quit. He's like, you will finish the season. You're going to go to practice today. You're going to finish the season. If you don't play next year, that's on you, but you're not going to quit. And it was pretty early on, I learned that as a lesson. And even into high school, I kind of had this sort of situation with football where I just didn't really know, if it was for me or not. But it was always like resonating in my mind of like, you're not going to quit. Finish what you started. And so like fast forward my freshman year of college, I got a funny story about how I ended up in preseason camp that year as a true freshman walk-on. Shouldn't have been there in the first place, but hated it. Hardest thing mentally and physically. Preston, you can speak to this.
Oh, yeah.
Preseason camp, terrible.
What's up, friends? If you've been wanting to get into real estate, or maybe you're in real estate and you got a few properties, but you want to scale, but you're just not sure how, I want to help you out. The waitlist to my signature course and mentorship, the Rental Academy, is officially open. All you have to do is text me the word WIN, W-I-N, to 864-660-7148, and that will put you on the wait list. So you'll be the first to know when the doors are open to the academy, so you can ensure that you get a spot. And along the way, I'm going to send you a lot of cool behind the scenes content as well as we lead up to the day that the doors actually open to the course. There are tons of students already currently enrolled in the Rental Academy, having amazing success, and I can't wait for you to join in with those folks who are already crushing it so that you can change your life for the better. You can give yourself your time back, you can have that financial freedom, and you can build generational wealth for years to come.
What is it? Unpack that. What do you guys do at preseason camp of football?
You just do football for 30 straight days.
Yep.
It's you get up in the morning, you have practice, you have film, you eat like at least at Austin P. They probably have better food at Clemson.
Nah, we ate Shaletter. It wasn't that much better.
Yeah, they were like, they just give you something to eat, a banana or whatever, and then you go to meetings, and then we practice in the morning.
Yep.
And then we eat lunch, and then we have special teams meetings or something, defensive team meeting, individual meetings, watch film from that morning, go to practice,
lift
maybe
weights,
watch film afterwards. I can't remember, or lift at some point during that. Maybe we lifted, and then we watched some of the films after. I can't remember exactly. But it wasn't like 4 or 5 days like it was in high school.
Yeah.
This is a month.
It's a month. And it's like, to his point, I mean, you start about 7 a.m., and you finish our curfew, which is funny that he had curfew. It's not like you felt like doing anything after the day was over, but like 10 p.m., you're back in your dorm, and it's a month. And it is hardest thing to this day, like physically and mentally, that I've ever been through. And especially like, I was a preferred walk-on, if you want to call it that, at Clemson. Now they make a bigger deal out of that now. Then it was like, yeah, come on. Like, if you can make it and survive, then you can stay, I guess.
Give it your best shot.
Yeah, that's right. That's right. And, man, I just remember I would go back to my dorm every night and be like, this sucks.
Yeah.
Like, if this is college ball, I don't think I want any part of this. But what stuck with me was what, as a fourth grader, my dad had instilled in me, and all the way through my life, even like post football and in business, was like this whole idea of like, never quit, never give up, no matter how hard it is. And so because he always believed that like it was a habit. Everything was a habit with him. So he felt like quitting would be a habit. If I let you do it once, you're going to think it's okay. Then you'll do it again. And so because I never knew how to quit, I never did. And that even in business today is something that I hold very much close to my heart, is like, I've never quit. I don't know how to quit. So I just keep going, So I think that really instilled in me a lot, like as a, kid growing up and kind of coming through sports, and just this idea of just like keep going,
Did you guys have professional concussion getters at Clemson like we had at Austin P?
Professional concussion getters.
Every year about the third day of camp?
Oh God, yeah.
Concussion?
Yeah, that's right. Yes.
Or like a something?
Yes.
Every year until 2 days before, till we got back
till we got back to regular season.
Yeah, shells. We were back in shells and shorts.
No doubt.
Somehow they recovered.
All of a sudden they're good now. Yeah, like it's funny.
And then they play in front of me.
Yeah, that's right. Well, yeah, it's funny because I'm like, they talk about concussions so much now. I'm like, there was a couple, like I was never diagnosed with a concussion. You were probably the same way, Preston, but like it was always like, he
got his bell rung.
Yeah, that's right. Bell rung. That was it. I'm like, I don't know. I saw stars and blacked out for a second, but you call it whatever you want to call it. And just like, I can't say anything because you'll tell me to pack my bags and go home. So,
a little more old school back then.
A little more old school. And I feel like I don't want to be that guy who's like, back in my day, kind of.
We were right on the edge when concussions got serious. Like my last year, I actually got hit in the head, and they made me stay out, and I was like, sort of surprised. I was like, for what?
What? Yeah, why? Yeah, that's right. Yeah,
somebody, kind of ratted me out or something, that I got my bell rung, so to speak, and they held me out, and I was kind of like, why?
Yeah,
what are you doing?
And even like two-a-days. I don't know if you guys were still. They don't do those anymore either. Like that's a thing of the past. Yeah, they don't do two-a-days anymore, and so that whole idea of like wake up in the morning, put on full pads, and then like Preston was saying, like, okay, we're gonna go to meetings, we're gonna eat lunch, we're gonna come back for meetings, and then we're gonna practice again, 24 periods or something in the afternoon. It's like a foreign concept now. And so so that was kind of something that for me, I think I always held closely, was this idea of just like don't quit. No matter what, don't quit.
Yeah. I love that. And I think, not to dive into today's society too much, but we can get a little spicy here. That's a problem. Nowadays, talking about being that guy who don't want to be back in my day, but it's so easy for parents nowadays to just pull their kids out of something that they don't like.
Absolutely.
Even at the start of this basketball season, my son, my oldest son, he's like, I don't want to play anymore. I'm like,
Yep.
sorry. Already signed up. Well, now he's going and scoring baskets and one's the better player.
He's enjoying it.
Yeah, and he's out in the driveway every day playing.
Love that.
But it's like you said, it's more of that mindset, more than continuing to play a sport when you're young or continuing to play an instrument or doing dance.
Yep.
It's how do we instill these values that are going to last with us forever. And I know, with us three sitting here today, I know, all of our backgrounds, that has been a huge part of what has made us successful today, like you stated. And I can say the same thing you did, that if I wouldn't have had that upbringing from not only my parents, but also coaches in my life and mentors, there's no way, because it's too easy to quit. I mean,
that's right.
Even in the a newer business venture we're in right now, it's like you face battles, and there are days where you're just like, bro, I want to lay it down.
Absolutely.
I want to walk away. And if you just and if you just keep going, like when you want to stop, if you just keep going, that's when you'll actually reach that destiny in the long run.
Well, that's so good too, Jared. That's so true. And I think that, like, whether it's a deal that you're up against, that just, we've all been in them, where it's like, it's just not going right. Like I go home at the end of every day and I'm like, God, what's going to be the next thing that pops up tomorrow? But rather than being like I'm throwing in the towel, because what I've found in my life, and I think you guys could both speak to this, is like those moments when you have those obstacles, when the obstacles feel the greatest, when you can clear those, now it builds confidence. Yep. So now the next obstacle that comes up, it's like, well, hey, remember that time I was able to conquer this? I can beat this too. You know what I mean? Yeah. And that's what happened with me along my football journey, was like every year, I just built a little more confidence, a little more confidence. And in business, the same way. And the only way to really do that is through experiences and through challenges, and through putting yourself in uncomfortable situations and then pressing through it and persevering. I think it's something that gets lost on a lot of people today.
That's good stuff. That's spot on.
One of the things I was thinking about, you were talking about earlier at the locker room, I wanted to let you kind of talk, is, I've been thinking about this idea of learning how to sort of get along with all sorts of people.
Yeah.
Because you're in the deal making business. I'm in sales. I'm in the deal making business.
That's right.
In locker rooms, you've got people from every political affiliation, shade of skin color, the whole deal, and you get along. Yeah. And it's the funniest group of people you've ever been around.
Awesome.
And everybody figures out a way to win. At least we didn't figure out a way to win at Austin Peay, but we tried.
You try. That's right. Exactly.
That's what our goal was.
Yeah, absolutely.
I just think it's really cool. I think it gives everybody a leg up. People that did that and learn to form because that's business relationships, right?
Yep. That's it.
And to get along in the locker room, that's what you have to do. So,
Preston, I love that. I think you're spot on, because I can remember coming out of Clemson, and at that point, I've been in a locker room for pretty much most of my life, right? Sure. Just like y'all, it's like from the time you're a kid, you're playing a sport, or you're doing, or even like you said, like whether it's an instrument, you're part of a team and you're part of something. And but especially like in a locker room, and I remember coming out into quote unquote the real world, and it was like, wait a minute, so y'all don't get along because of your background, your political view, your skin. Like, that's weird, because like I just spent the last 4.5 years with 100 guys who from every different background, race, religion, ethnicity. And you know what we all did? We all stood beside each other. We sweat and bled together, and we worked for a common goal. Yep. So like anything different than that, I don't understand that. You don't understand it.
What's going on?
That's right. So I think to your point though, like it does give us a leg up, because like our default is connect and work together, whereas most people want to go against that, And so when we're willing to do that with a client or a prospect, man, I think it just sets us up for success.
So how do we get the world to become more like a locker room? As long as it doesn't smell like a locker room, everything, everything else about it will be spot on.
Do you remember this at Hannah? Okay. The locker room down by the gym.
Oh, yeah.
You didn't even have to go down to the bottom of the steps. It was like that whole hallway.
Football pads hanging.
You could smell the locker room from 100 yards away. True or false?
Oh, yeah. There has to be so many diseases.
Oh, God.
No, not diseases. We won't go that far. But just like
probably
like mold and all kind. It was so nasty down there.
I don't know if I can say. I mean, so like I remember my senior year, we had a guy who like didn't wash his stuff. And so, like, literally spread impetigo amongst like half the team, and I was like, I didn't know what that was.
Staff,
exactly.
Versa,
No, there was definitely stuff growing in there that shouldn't have been. For sure.
That is hilarious. I remember. This is totally off topic, but I'm just thinking. You graduated high school in 06.
Yep.
I remember one of the coolest things. We had a lot of good players.
We did.
You went to Clemson. In my age group, we had Quentin Payton, NC State. Ben went to Clemson.
Absolutely.
one of my biggest memories from Hannah with football, outside of being at the games watching, because I didn't play, I played baseball, was when Ben Alexander was being recruited by Texas, and Mac Brown showed up in our lunch hall one day. Do you remember that?
I do. I remember it well because Ben and I were friends. We were the same age, and we had played McCants and then all the way through high school together. And that was really cool. I mean, that was a kind of a foreign. You had Raphael Little, who was 2 years ahead of me. He was kind of the first guy that I remember of like, and I remember watching him in middle school as a sixth grade when he was in eighth grade at McCants, and it was like that's still to this day the best like all around player that I've ever.
What an athlete!
Unbelievable. I mean, I can remember like I think it was South Aiken, and he broke an 80-yard touchdown run. They put him in on defense to play outside linebacker. He had a pick six, and then he returned to kickoff to win the game. It's like, let's just give him the ball every time, you know. But Ben, that was really cool, and that was Texas that year that he signed beat Southern Cal in the national championship.
They were huge. They were the
deal.
The school.
Yeah. And Ben and I were actually watching that game together at a friend's house, and that was pretty cool because at that point he'd committed. And that was Mac Brown and his Texas days.
Oh, yeah.
He played 4 years there. That was definitely pretty cool. We had some good players come through.
Ryan Maddox, you would have played with Ryan.
Yeah, Brian was a year behind me. Brian was a great player. Good, big, tough running back, and so playing with him was a lot of fun.
Went to Carolina.
Went to Carolina and had a good career down there. So
we'll forgive him. We'll forgive him for
that's right. We won't hold that against him. But no, we did. We had some really good players, and and Hannah. We had some good guys that came out and went on to do some really good things at the next level.
That's really cool.
Yeah,
so what was it like for you? So you would have got to, we'll dig into some Clemson details here without going too far. You would have been in the transition from Tommy Bowden to Dabo Sweeney.
So I'll tell you this.
Spill the tea.
So I'll actually back up a little bit. This is what I alluded to earlier because it was a funny story. I was thinking about everything today. So again, like coming out of high school, like I was undersized. Like I played offensive guard, tackle, defensive end, kind of played both ways. And so not really big enough to play line, probably not fast enough to play like linebacker or whatever, didn't have enough tape to prove it. And so I had some interest from some smaller schools, but like for me growing up in Anderson, it was like the dream was Clemson. Like, and I had gone to games ever since I could remember. Kind of a funny random story. I have a direct descendant who's in the first graduating class from Clemson, and every generation since, my family's had at least one person graduate from Clemson. So just like truly this idea of bleeding orange is like all I ever knew.
And for those of y'all listening who don't know, we live 20 to 25 minutes from the campus. So it's a big deal. When you're from Anderson, Clemson is
that's the deal.
Life in the fall.
And we don't have pro teams. Like, the Panthers came along in 95 and played at Clemson for a year, which was cool. But, for us, like that is the pro team, and it definitely was for me. And so I had this dream of going to play at Clemson one day. Coach Bowden was the coach at the time. We sent some film up there. It was kind of like, hey, we like your film. We don't have a scholarship for you, but we will offer you a preferred walk-on opportunity. And for me, I jumped at it. I'm like, hey, just give me a shot. That's really all I want. And so that spring, which kind of went out like right around signing day, which then there was only one in February, and worked out all that and got accepted into Clemson and had this opportunity to go. So spent the entire spring and summer of my senior year of high school. I woke up at 4:30 a.m. every single day. Scott Littlejohn, flight school.
That's my guy.
I love him, man. So he's now training my 6 and 4-year-old. I say training, like just teach him fundamentals of athleticism.
I got to get mine out there. I saw him on Facebook the other day. Awesome. I got to get back with him. I used to do it with him.
Did you?
Me and Brooks Hall used to get with him.
Yep, that's right.
5:30.
Yep.
So we must have gone after you. We weren't. We couldn't get up early enough to get to 4:30.
Well, it was funny because and I remember I was like, I was like, why do I have to go this early? He's like, you don't need to go off to college and play ball and not be able to get up early. Like that's just a foundational component. I'm like, okay. So I just did whatever he told me. So we wake up at 4:30, we go to the gym at 5, we work out, lift weights for about an hour and a half, and then we go back out to the McCants Bowl at 2:00 in the afternoon. Whenever it was the hottest, he said, hey, I'm just gonna look at the temperature. Whenever's the hottest part of the day, we're going back out to do conditioning. And so I did that spring, summer. Ended up like putting on 30 pounds, vertical went up 7 inches, like all the measurables just hit, like it was great. So
solid plug for that guy.
Yeah, that's right. Flight school.
If you are looking, if you're an athlete or you have a kid who's an athlete, there's no better person to work out with than Scott Littlejohn in Anderson, South Carolina.
Flight school.
unbelievable. He has trained so many fabulous athletes.
I need to reach out to him about an affiliate program.
Yeah, that's right. Yes.
So if you hear me, we want commissions off of that.
Yep, absolutely. So it was great, but like, so fast forward. So I'm going to say this was like end of July of 2006. At that time, you had 115 guys on a college D1 team. You had 85 scholarship. You had 30 walk-ons. You had 105 of those that could actually report for camp. So I was not, as a freshman, true freshman walk-on, was not invited to camp originally. So I would report when school would start, like August 23rd or something. Camp started probably August 1st or something like that. And but like end of July, probably July, I'm making up these dates, but it's all kind of within the same time frame. July 28th, 3 days before the report date for camp, Coach Bowden had a FCA kind of dinner at his house for all the freshmen that were coming in that year. And so I'm over there. We had a really good freshman class. So CJ Spiller and Ricky Sapp, who were like really, 2 5-star guys coming out. That was just a huge deal in changing the trajectory of Clemson football. Both were in my class, so that's kind of the era that I was in. We're over at Coach Bowden's house and standing there, and I met some of the coaches, but not all of them. This guy comes up to me and just, "Hey man, I'm Dabo Sweeney. Nice to meet you. I'm the wide receivers coach." And I'm like, "Oh, okay, cool." We're talking. And he's like, "Oh, John Wright." He's like, You're reporting for camp, aren't you?" I was like, "Well, no, sir." I was like, I report in 3-4 weeks and when school started. Like, "Oh no." He's like, "We were talking about you this morning. We had a guy back out." He said, "You're in." He said, "Cancel your plans with your girlfriend. You're coming to camp Thursday." And I'm like, "Whoa, what is happening?" Yeah. And little did I know what that meant. And so that, another major principle, and it's something Coach Sweeney repeats all the time, is if you stay ready, you don't have to get ready. And fortunately for me, I'd spent the 6 months prior to that moment preparing for camp or preparing for football at that next level. Had I not been and said, "Oh, you know what, I can wait a month or so out and start getting ready," I wouldn't have made it. Physically, there was no way I could have made it if I hadn't been preparing for that moment.
Wow.
And because I had stayed ready, I didn't have to, quote, get ready. Now, mentally, that was a whole other thing that you just go through that you really can't replicate preseason camp as a true freshman, I don't think, without going through it. Preston, would you say that?
No, I mean, that's what I try to describe to people. It's like when you're watching football and you just see them run I don't know, little inside run, inside zone, tackle for 2 yards. It doesn't look like anything on TV.
That's right.
If you're in the mix with it, it's like a car wreck.
Oh, yeah. And you got about 10, 15 seconds before you're back up there and getting ready to do it again.
Yeah, yeah. And the game moves so much faster. It's funny, from the time I was a freshman and, playing against the 3s on 3s or whatever we were, the scrubs on scrubs in college, I thought they were amazing players. And they weren't very, by the time I was a senior, I think our scout team got worse somehow. But anyway, but you could just dominate the scout team, which was such a strange, how fast the game is and starts to slowly.
It does. Well, I can remember coming in. So because I was a little bit undersized, especially up front, I always in high school, I would beat guys off the ball speed, right? Well, then I got to Clemson. I'm like, this dude's 300 pounds and he's beating me off the snap. I'm like, dang, what do I do now? And so, but you kind of buy into the weight room program and situation. You kind of grow into that, to your point, and you just learn the game a little bit more too. Mentally, I think there's something that happens playing at the college level that you just can't get at the high school level. Yeah. But that was a huge moment for me of stay ready because you never know when that opportunity is going to come. And for me, that's what that looked like. And fortunately, I was prepared, and I was able to go in there and fortunately make it through and then go on and play, 5 seasons at Clemson, which was a really special deal for me.
Awesome.
But so the transition, you've been talking about that for a little bit?
Yeah.
Come on.
So that is
I will say, I just to correlate this back to some of the people who follow the Finance Cowboy brand.
Yeah.
Staying ready. And this kind of correlates. One of the things I talk about is side hustles. Okay, especially when you're just starting out.
Yep.
And I try to emphasize that side hustles most of the time aren't going to make you very wealthy.
Yep.
You may get lucky and something pop off.
That's right.
After trying it enough times. But what it does is it gets you ready for when that big opportunity shows up.
That's good.
Right?
That's good.
And so it teaches you things. You're working harder. You're having to sacrifice some stuff. You're stretching yourself. You're learning skills, that you didn't have before. So then when that opportunity arises, you can take over. And I think we can, translate that from what you did with Little John, in that offseason preparing. We need to be doing that in the business world as well. And whatever we can to always be sharpening those skills. You may be in the worst job of your life right now, but don't don't neglect your personal growth because of your current situation, because there's a good chance that if you stay at it, you're going to land in a spot that could really change your life. So anyways, just wanted to make that connection.
Well, and just to piggyback on that, Jaron, I think you bring up a really good point. Like, even from the standpoint of, okay, you're in a job you hate, but let's say, you know, you bought into your coaching network, or, and this is not, you didn't tell me to say this, but I'm just just going to say it, is, you know,
I paid him.
You don't know. That's right. Yeah. After the sign me at 20, appreciate it. But, you know, you're taking this information and you're going, when am I going to ever need this?
Right.
You don't know when that deal or that opportunity is going to arise. But it's like, oh, because I prepared myself through that, I know that I can go in and I can buy this deal, or I know how to do it.
Yep.
If you just kind of say, well, I'm in this job that sucks and I'm not going to really prepare myself for anything else, you don't know when a good opportunity comes up or not.
Exactly.
Because you hadn't stayed ready. So I think it's a really good point.
That's good stuff. Yeah, tell us about this transition.
Yeah,
going from Tommy Bowden to Dabo Swinney. Because if you guys watch football, if you don't watch football, Dabo Swinney is arguably one of the best coaches to ever live now.
Absolutely.
Now, when
100%.
John was there, Dabo Swinney went from being a wide receivers coach, and I think he was Tommy's assistant.
He was,
to nobody really knew who he was.
That's exactly right. It was a really weird dynamic. So I'm 2006 freshman year, I redshirt, don't play a down. 2007 redshirt freshman, second year, don't play a down. 2008, so my redshirt sophomore year, and honestly, like I'd had a sports hernia that came up during camp. Actually, had to have surgery, remove it, whatever. It took me out for some time. Wasn't playing, so now we're in year 3. I haven't played a down. Mind you, I'm going through mat drills, I'm going through preseason camp, I'm going through summer conditioning, and I'm not playing it down. I'm getting my butt kicked at practice.
Go with it. Go with it. We got it.
Okay, all right, cool. So getting my ass kicked at practice. Yeah. And I'm saying that like I'm not a guy who cusses, but like I want the audience to understand, like, scout team walk on, like, it sucked, okay?
Yeah, not fun.
Yeah. Not playing it down, okay? So 2008 redshirt sophomore, going through the season, we get beat by Wake Forest on a Thursday night. Start hearing rumblings that, something might be out, whatever. And at this point, like, I'm kind of thinking, going back to what we talked about earlier, hey, I'm not really playing. It's not working. I should probably go transfer somewhere else. Like Wofford, that was somewhere I probably would have gone if I wouldn't have gone to Clemson. Like somewhere else and just finish out my last 2 years of eligibility. Again, finish the season because I'm not going to quit. But then probably transfer out and go somewhere different. Transfer is a hot button topic right now. The portal, all that kind of stuff.
It wasn't as easy back then.
It was not. You had to sit a year if you went 1-1 or 2-1. If you went down, you didn't have to sit out a year.
And they had to release you too.
They had to release you. That's exactly right. So it was a whole different world then. And now you see guys like, I had a coach from college tell me, he's like, I knew I needed to be done when I was recruiting kids walking off the practice field.
Wow.
Because they didn't get enough snaps in the scrimmage, or they didn't snaps with the one. So now they're going to transfer out. It's like, you know what? Like, that ain't what it's about.
No.
And so, but I was having these thoughts. Well, then Coach Bowden gets fired. Coach Swinney gets the job. And, it was just different. And Coach Bowden, I always say Coach Bowden gave me a shot. Coach Swinney gave me an opportunity.
Wow.
And understand the difference in those two things. Like, Coach Swinney would come to me at practice. He'd call me by name. Hey, John, how you doing, man? How's your family doing? Personal questions, right? Personal touch. And so for me, I always tell people, I wish I could have been there when Ben, who you're going to have on here, was there winning a national championship and all these AC championships. Like, we didn't have all that.
Yeah, y'all were in the trenches.
We were in the trenches. We went, we went, I think 6 and 7 my senior year and lost the Meineke Car Care Bowl in Charlotte. The year before, we went 9-5 and made the first AC championship and got beat by Georgia Tech, won the division, but lost in the conference championship. But for me, the lessons and the leadership that I learned from that transition truly were transformational for me as a man and as a leader. So Coach Swinney comes in, and it's way more Bowden, who I love and respect, CEO. Coach Swinney comes in, relational, right?
Interesting.
Calling you by name, asking about your family. How'd you do on that test today? Man, you had a good practice today. I'm going, man, this guy, like, there's 100 other guys on the team he should be coming and talking to before me, but he's coming up to me and engaging me in conversation. He cares about me.
Yeah.
That's how it felt to me. So we come out of that 2008 season. We end up beating South Carolina. He gets the full-time job. I'm there December the 1st of 2008, sitting with probably a dozen or so other players when he gets the job. You know, it has the press conference, really cool thing.
Great press conference.
It was amazing. And gets the job. We end up getting beat by Nebraska in the Gator Bowl, January 1st of 2009.
That was in Jacksonville.
I
was there.
Were you? Oh,
yes,
okay.
I was so upset. I'm like, I made the trek down, but it was a great atmosphere, great experience.
It was, and Ndamukong Suh was with Nebraska
What are you gonna
and
do?
just dominated. And so I kind of said, going into that next offseason, I said, you know what? Like, I'm just going to rededicate myself to this program and what this guy's talking about. Like,
that's cool. That's crazy. One man.
Had the power. 100%, man. And I always tell people, other than my parents, who I talked about earlier, Dabo Swinney has had the greatest impact on my life as far as like a husband and a father and a leader than anybody else I've ever encountered.
Wow.
And so I just said, you know what, I'm going to buy in. Well, then we had a couple coaching changes. Kevin Steele, who just got hired to be the defense coordinator at Alabama.
I saw that.
He comes in as defensive coordinator. Love Coach Steele. Dan Brooks, phenomenal. Probably the best defensive line coach ever in the college game.
Wow.
Coached at Tennessee for 15 years probably. Number of first-round draft picks. Came to Clemson and retired from there, but coached a number of first-round draft picks there as well. And so, you know, starting to change the staff dynamic a little bit. And I said, I'm just going to recommit. Recommit in the weight room. Recommitted at practice. Changing the mindset of when I show up to practice, what am I trying to do? Am I just trying to get by, or am I here to get better? He always talk about, hey, get a little bit better today than you were yesterday. Cool. And tomorrow, we'll get a little bit better than we were today. Just like this whole idea of 1% better.
Wow.
And end up getting like some recognition for off-season commitment and gains. Spring practice end up getting some recognition for my performance on the field. And so, again, this whole idea of just recommitting myself and buying into what he's selling, and then end up getting put on full scholarship my junior year right before fall camp.
Wow.
And lettered my final 2 years, and on scholarship my final 2 years. Was it actually one of the first ones that one of the first walk-ons he put on scholarship at Clemson, which was super cool.
That's awesome.
But just like understanding the difference in leadership styles, like, and what the impact that had on me. And it's like, okay, if he can do that for me, how can I do that for somebody else? Yeah. And so I think that idea of leadership and servant leadership, and, you know, he always says we're going to care about our players, you know, and about we're going to coach their hearts, not their talents, you know. And so I even tell our guys at work today, I've got a team, you know, we got about 20 people if you include our property management and brokerage team. And I always tell our guys, I'm like, hey, I don't really just want you to come in here and make a bunch of commissions. And, you know, I want you to be successful personally, professionally, spiritually, mentally. Like, there's this element of like, I want you to be the total package, right? And that all comes from my time under him. So
wow.
It was pretty cool.
That's
pretty
really cool. Yeah, the fact that you got to play, not even play, but just like be under that leadership. Most don't get to be under a leader like that.
Yeah.
Somebody said, I mean, he's won 2 national championships, tons of ACC championships. He just knows how to build a culture.
He does.
Most people don't know how to build a culture in business, sports.
He's sort of the first CEO type coach, right?
Yeah, the first one that really kind of came in and like transformed culture. You know, at that time, because you had Saban was doing his thing in Alabama, and I love Nick Saban and what he's done, what he's built. I think he's a great leader in his own right. But Coach Swinney was definitely ahead of his time a little bit. Now that's kind of the new norm. Yeah. But as far as kind of this whole idea of changing culture, he was definitely ahead of his time. I tell people, Jaron, I say I got a bachelor's degree in finance from Clemson, but I got a master's degree in leadership from the School of Dabo Swinney. Like, because awesome. It really, I mean, I tell people it's the greatest leader I've ever been under, not even close. And I consider myself very fortunate to have spent time there with him.
It's got to be authentic, you know. Like, I think that's his big differentiator is. Like, he generally cares about the people that he's talking about, and he believes in what he's selling.
Yep.
And
you can't fake it.
You can't fake that. And I think that there's so many people trying to like recreate that lightning in the bottle, and it's not going so well. So I think that's like kind of what he has is you know, it's an authenticity.
You're exactly right. So I mean, a lot of people, I can't tell you the number of times, especially like early on, like more people knew that like I played there or whatever, played for him. It was like they'd see him on TV in a press conference. They're like, there's like, that's such an act. I'm like, no, you don't understand. Like, he's been that way since he was the wide receivers coach. Like, he's just who he is. He didn't really care if you like it or I like it. Like, all he knows to be is himself. And, you know, he has this ability to create an instant connection with people. And I tell people all the time, he just happens to be the head coach at Clemson University. He could be the CEO of Coca-Cola. He could own my business, y'all's business. Like, whatever he's going to do, he's going to be successful.
Yeah.
Because he understands leadership. He understands how to create buy-in for people. He understands culture. And, like, I'll never forget, you know, for me, one of the most special accomplishments to this day was when he put me on scholarship. And we're in fall camp. And I'll never forget, he gets up in front of the team and he says, Kathleen and Kathleen's his wife, they were high school sweethearts and everything, and just a phenomenal family. He says, Kathleen and I always talked about we wanted to make a lot of money when we got older, so we give it all away,
Wow.
And he says, tonight I get to give away some money. He said, I'm putting some guys on scholarship. And I just remember like the reaction from the guys around me, my teammates who had been there with me for 3 years at that point while I didn't play it down, and watched me kind of grow and recommit and buy in and encourage me along the way. They were all like giving me hugs, and I wish now they do these videos.
I
know. Post everywhere.
They have all that, which is probably a good thing too.
It's a double-edged sword. Yeah, that's right. Yeah. But I remember like going up to him and just like giving him a hug, and I'm like, "Thank you so much, and you won't regret this." Because like there's this element of like when a guy cares for you and loves you, you want to perform for him. Like you don't have to force performance. You can lead them through that, and they're gonna want to perform for you. And so I think it's something for me as a leader. Whether it be I've got 3 boys, 6, 4, and 7 months, especially the 6-year-old. Like a lot of times I want to just, white knuckle him through what he needs to do. And someone's like, hey, just lead him and care for him a little bit. And like, you'll get him to where he needs to be. And so this idea of kind of pulling and not pushing, and even our guys in our office, we've got a lot of young guys, just out of school, 22, 23, 24 years old. And, for me, it's like, again, that idea of pouring into them from a personal standpoint, from a spiritual standpoint, and bringing them along is so important in our business. A lot of times you have guys that want to crack the whip, and it's like, that's fine. They may work for a time, but I think in today's culture, like you really have to care about the person first.
So, you should. That's the right thing to do.
That's right. Yeah,
that's the right way to do it.
Absolutely.
So you graduate Clemson.
Yeah.
You end up having a fantastic time there once you made it through that first
Yeah.
grueling year,
Yep.
And got to play under Coach Dabo Sweeney.
Yep.
You graduate, and what happens from there?
So graduate, get a degree in finance with a concentration in real estate, minor in accounting, and I knew I was interested in real estate. I knew I wanted to pursue real estate. I actually already bought my first investment property at that point, but also had an interest in finance. And my dad, who owned our company before I bought him out January of 2020, basically wouldn't let me come work for him. He was like, you got to go work somewhere else. So
that's funny. I did not know that.
Yeah. Yep. So I did not go work with him right out of school. I went to work for a financial services company. I got my Series 7 stockbroker.
Dude, what was the
advisor.
Series 7? Like, I've heard it is awful.
I threw up the day of the exam.
That bad?
Legit. Like, I was in Atlanta in a hotel room. I woke up the next morning and threw up. I was so nervous.
This is a guy who's played football in front of hundreds of thousands of people.
For sure. And I was literally puking in a trash can the morning of the test. Fortunately, I somehow passed it, and it was tough. But, and that business was good. I liked it. I didn't love it. But it taught me a lot of really good foundational things that I was able to carry into my next career. Because again, I'm a big believer that like we got to always be learning. We got to always be consuming. Like even this interaction, like even the three of us talking beforehand, like I had stuff that I took away from that conversation that is going to cause me to think and be better than I was before I walked in this room. And so for me, it's always like, what can I take away to make me better tomorrow than I was today? And so for me, like that was I did that for about 2 years, and again, liked it, didn't love it. And then right around the time my wife and I got married, I decided to make a career change. So got to go work for my dad and selling real estate, commercial real estate. Got my license, and it was good. I mean, I was able to really take a lot of what I learned from football and carry over in the business world. This idea of like, I tell our guys all the time, there's a lot of things in this life and in this business that you have no control over. There's 2 things that you have control over: your attitude and your effort. So, hey, every time you walk into this office, every time you walk into this building, you give me great attitude, you give me great effort, we'll figure out the rest. I can teach you the business, right? Like you can teach your people, your students and stuff like how to do real estate. But if they're going to have a poor attitude, they're not going to give good effort, like they're probably not going to be successful.
Sure.
And so to me, like that's the foundation of it. And so for me, it was all about like, I want to outwork everybody. Nobody's going to work harder than me. Like that was a commitment for me, like especially going back to football as a walk-on. Like I call it a walk-on mentality is what I live my life with. I don't care if I'm worth $100 billion. I will never be good enough because I always see myself as like too small, too slow, not good enough. Like, and that mentality from football has carried over into business and life. So it's like, I have this goal and this vision of like where I want to go. Ultimately knowing that like, even if I get there, it's never going to be enough. And not in like a unfulfilling way. Like, right. I'm not saying this in a way of like, hey, it's never going to be good enough, but in my own mind, I'm never going to arrive.
You just got that drive.
It's the drive. That's
keep
exactly
going.
right.
That's what makes you wake up every day.
Yes, exactly.
People think when you get to this certain dollar amount that you've made, right? And I know you've crushed it. You've done well for yourself. Same thing with me and Preston. We've done well. Make more money than I ever thought. I'm worth more than I ever thought. And if you'd asked me 10 years ago about, if I get there, in my mind, I think I'll be like, we'll just shut it off.
Yeah,
and
that's right. There's no such thing.
No. And it's not about attaining more dollars.
It's about the journey and the process.
It's about the journey.
I remember when I was teaching school in Macon, Georgia, and I was laying there in bed one night. I still remember this. And I thought, man, if I just made like $7,000 in a month, like what would my life be?
Oh,
like,
yeah.
And like, not taking anything away from somebody making, $80,000. I think that's great money. That's a good thing. At the time I was probably making 32.
That's right.
And I just remember thinking how much money that was and, been able to be successful from there. And you're right. Like there's no point at which I'm no different now than I was when I was teaching school,
Yeah.
And like that's what I like about that.
Yeah.
But I think you guys are right. There's no point where you have arrived. Nothing's going to solve all your problems.
I want to just on that elaborate on that a little bit. Like I remember I had this very specific goal. It was a net worth goal. By the time I got to 30, I want to be worth a certain amount of money.
Yep.
And I got there when I was like 28. And I remember doing that thinking like, all right, well, this is cool, but like
nothing's changed.
Nothing's changed. Just
you got a little more freedom.
You got a little more freedom.
You don't worry about going out to eat.
Yes, that's exactly right. Yes, like it is good.
You want to have money compared to not having money. I've been in both places.
100%.
It's more advantageous to have money.
1,000%. But like the goalpost always has to move, because like, man, I can't imagine a worse place to be than just feeling like, well, I did what I was set up, what I was put here to do, and like it's kind of over now. Like now what? You know what I mean? Like as long as you're breathing, you're on this earth, man, you got goals and you got things that you're supposed to go accomplish. And I just think that like we're all put here to maximize our own selves. Like whatever I always said, I can't control what God gave you, but I can control what I do with it.
Yep.
And I can control that through how I wake up every day, the attitude and the effort that I put in each day and the consistency that I live my life with. And I just think that's so important is that like, hey, you may have been born with $1 million. Great. Go turn into $1 billion. You may have been born with 0. Go turn into $1 million. Like whatever it is, be better than when you found it. Be better than you were yesterday. So, got into the real estate business. Sorry, I kind of sidebarred there.
No, this is what it's for.
Yeah, what does the brokerage do? So what's y'all's main focus? I know you got a couple branches. What's kind of bread and butter? Yeah,
so we've evolved a lot. So when I first went to work there in 2012, we had like 6-7 employees. Now I mentioned earlier we've got a little over 20, and we've been really, really blessed. I mean, since I bought my dad out in January 1st of 2020. Granted, 2 months later, we go into a global pandemic. Like, what is this?
What are we doing?
I've got it.
Dad, can I get my money back?
Yeah, exactly. Well, it's funny. I have a joke because we have, I'm big on like, hey, honor the past, but build for the future, right? And so in honoring the past, I've got a conference room in our office, the first floor. I call it the Legacy Conference Room. And so we started actually as a construction company. My great-grandfather, my grandfather. And I love that because I always tell our guys, I'm like, man, there's a blue-collar construction lunch pail mentality that's woven in the DNA of this organization. Wow. And so, like, yeah, we may be selling real estate now, but there's still a blue-collar mentality that we're supposed to show up with every day and go to work, And so that's really what my grandfather and great-grandfather were. They were builders and developers and built homes mostly. So I've got a picture of my great-grandfather, my grandfather, my dad, and me, and kind of like what years each one served as president of the company.
Wow.
And I joke with people, I say, yeah, I'll be honest with you. I really thought mom was going to say January of 2020 to March of 2020. I know it took y'all 60 years to build. It took me 3 months to run in the ground, because I was trying to change the culture, right?
That's a lot of pressure.
It was, well, and I was like, moved us into a new building downtown. I doubled our staff. Thank you. I appreciate it. It's been cool. And before that, we were in a building we've been in for 50 years. And, I remember my dad telling me like, you're not going to sell any more real estate because you move into a new building. I said, well, maybe not, but I'm trying to provide a culture for our team and our clients that they feel good about walking into. Yeah. And I think that maybe not directly will sell us more property, but indirectly I think it will. And it has. And so we've been very fortunate in that regard. But so we've got, going back to your question, Jaron, we've got kind of 3 buckets that we operate out of. So we've got third-party brokerage. So conventional, you're a doctor and you owned your medical building for 30 years, time to retire and sell the building. we want to come and list that property for you and help you sell it. And I think we do a really good job. We got about a 70% localized market share in Anderson County, upstate South Carolina, on that regard. We've got about $110 million in listed inventory, which is exclusively listed product that we have. When we came into 2020, we had about $26 million. So we've grown that a ton, and that's been a lot of fun because you're adding a team of people.
Yeah, and if you drive around Anderson, if you guys are ever in Anderson, you will see the signs everywhere. Everybody comes to Anderson.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah, exactly. Yeah,
you guys are everywhere.
Well, I appreciate it.
I would have guessed you have more market share because and you do a great job the marketing with the signs. You probably don't even think anything of it anymore.
No,
but
I
it
do.
Stands out.
Well, I appreciate that. We put a big emphasis on that. Inventory. You can't sell what you don't got. So our thing is we can't make people buy property, but we can go tie it up and control the inventory piece of it. So that's been really cool. And we've got a really good team of folks that work on that side. We've got development. So that's where we're buying and acquiring property and either doing ground up construction. I've done several build-to-suits for retailers, fast food restaurants, Dunkin' Donuts, Little Caesars, a number of other brands, multi-tenant retail, some ground up stuff. I built a 10,000-foot center last year or 2 years ago. And then actually the last 3 or 4 years, I've really enjoyed doing a lot of downtown kind of infill development, which has opened the door for some public-private partnerships with the city of Anderson. We just did a pretty significant redevelopment of a whole block with an old A&P grocery store, brewery.
Yep. You guys have done a great job.
It's been fun.
Downtown has turned.
It's coming. It's coming.
Big time.
It's been a lot of fun. And so that's the development side. And then kind of the third arm is the property management piece, which is we have a separate brand for that. So McCoy Wright is the real estate company. Legacy Property Services is the property management company. And they're housed in the same building. We work very closely with one another. I own a portion of that company, and we launched that in 2020, May of 2020. And we've got almost 2 million square feet under management in 5 states on that. So that thing's really taken off. And I can say that because I really can't take any credit for it because the guy who runs it is phenomenal.
He's crushing it.
But man, it's been fun. We love hiring former college athletes on the real estate side because there's a certain mentality and a certain work ethic that goes along with that. Jackson Williamson, I don't know, you may know Jackson. Jared, he's from Anderson. He went to West Side. He started out at Hannah, transferred to West Side. Played quarterback at Miami of Ohio. Really good kid, hard worker. I coached him actually as a middle schooler, so I've known him for a long time. And so there's a good foundation there, and he's doing a great job. Been with me for a little over a year. And we've got some other guys. So, I think that's something that we still, within our own company, really strive to do is bring on former collegiate athletes.
That's awesome. Will you tell folks kind of the process of what the details look like? You mentioned you're buildings for maybe a Dunkin', or you're doing a big retail, 10,000 square foot. What does that look like? So tell us, do you guys own the building? Are you renting it out? Do you own the building? You're selling it to them? How's all that? Walk them through the process of what the transactions look like.
Yeah. So,
and I know they're different.
Everyone's different. Yep. So I'll kind of walk through I'll give you one that's very recent. We just signed a lease, just finalized drawings, making some revisions, hopefully get permits later this month. This is for a nationally recognized brand, franchisee concept, actually over in North Georgia. We had we knew they were looking, the franchisee was looking in the market for a store. And in this particular situation, he had he was in a 3-tenant building, did not have a drive-through. Well, we all know since COVID, everybody wants a drive-through window now. And so he did not have a drive-through. So established business in a good market, but no drive-through. And there was no way to convert it to a drive-through. So we've done this a number of times with some different retailers. We got connected with him, who was looking in the market, and said, well, hey, why don't you let us, when's your lease coming up? It's coming up about a year or whatever. Okay, well, why don't you let us go and build you a store? Because most of these guys don't want to own their real estate. They want to they can make more money in pizza or hamburgers or donuts than they can on the real estate. So we can come in as a developer and partner with them and let us be the real estate expert. They lease it from us. We build them what they want. They sign a 10, 15, 20-year lease back with us. And that's kind of how it works. So we go find the site in the market. We know about where they want to be. We put a contract on the property, have some due diligence runway, run projections. He'll run projections on the store to make sure it's going to work. We'll lay out a site plan, say, hey, we get you a drive-through with this much stacking and parking. Kind of work with the DOT about access. That's always a big deal for those guys. This particular situation, we had to negotiate the purchase of a separate easement to get it back to the red light because that was important. There's a lot of moving pieces to it. And then we actually the goal is to sign a lease before you close on the property.
Okay.
So then we go to the bank. We're going to say, hey, we got this lease, and it's for 15 years. And, it's going to cost us $500,000 to build it. We're spending $250,000 on the dirt, $750,000, project. And he's going to pay, $5,000 a month in rent. So that'd be a triple net deal. So
makes it easy to get the loan, right?
Exactly. So $60,000 a year, you can cap it out at cap rates are in such disarray right now because of the interest rate environment. But so you cap it out at a 6% cap rate. It probably comes out, I don't know this, but I'm saying probably $1 million. And, so you've got value, you've got equity in it, and then you can hold it and cash flow it out, or you can take it and sell in the investment market. Because you're basically selling the rental income at that point.
Exactly. And tell everybody real quick what a triple net lease is.
Yeah, for sure. Yep. So triple net lease is basically where, and the terms get really abused a lot, but triple net would be where the tenant is truly responsible for everything. So you kind of have, I always tell people, you got two different ends of the spectrum. You got absolute triple net, and you have full service or gross on this side where the landlord's responsible for everything. Triple net, tenant's responsible for everything. A lot of the leases are usually somewhere in the middle, as you know, where, actually, and I say even just, this is a triple net deal. I think we're responsible as a landlord for a roof replacement and a parking lot replacement, but you're talking, we got a 20-year warranty with the roof. So we're not having to touch that building for 20 years. Yep. So we're just collecting rent off of it, paying the debt down, building that wealth, which I know you talk a lot about is, on your show. And so, but again, right now we could go sell in the capital market. We could 1031 do something different. And so I love doing those, and they're a lot of fun. They're a little more cut and dry maybe than like some of the downtown. You go buy a 100-year-old building, you don't know what you're going to pull back until you get in there and start peeling back the layers.
Yeah.
So I love that. Plus I do feel like I feel this way about our company. I feel this way about the projects that we undertake. I feel a responsibility to help shape our community.
Yep.
And I think that's a big part of what I'm called to steward is, recruiting good businesses in the community, doing good projects that are going to benefit Anderson and surrounding communities or whichever community we're developing in.
Yep. And
that's important to me. I always say, we're not a here today, gone tomorrow group. Unless the Lord calls me to go somewhere else, I plan on living the rest of my life and dying in Anderson, South Carolina, because I love it here. And so if that's the case, I got to answer for the work that I'm doing here.
That's awesome.
Which I think just puts a little more responsibility on us as a developer. So that's kind of how that looks.
That's really cool. Which, not to skip too far ahead, because I want to ask you some more real estate stuff, but you talk about making an impact in our community, in any community that you're in, but specifically we'll talk about Anderson.
Yeah.
You guys have 100% on the real estate side. I mean, if you're here, you see it every day, but you personally getting involved in county council.
Yeah.
Which I think is amazing because like you said, you feel like it's your job to be able to steward and help grow this county, to help develop it. And so, what outside of that portion of it, what got you excited to jump in? How's that going?
So
what's life like as a county councilman?
We had a meeting last night, so this may be a pretty unfiltered answer.
That's fine.
Let's go. That's what we want.
Yeah, no. So so I kind of had always had an interest in politics growing up. I ran for some stuff, student body, won some, lost some, got beat, but always was just sort of drawn to it.
Yeah.
And back in 2016, ran for school board, District 5 school board. So again, you and I both products of District 5. There's 5 school districts in Anderson County. T.L. Hanna, where we went to, is in District 5, which is the largest district in the county, and really had a passion for, wanting to just help shape the future of the school district. I think there's a lot of things that should be taught in the schools that probably aren't. Another thing for me was when I was in school, nobody talked about staying in Anderson. It was all hey, I got to go to Greenville when I graduate, or Charlotte, or Atlanta, or Charleston. And something I'm very passionate about is I want the kids now to be able to graduate high school. If they go to college, go to technical school, or go right to the workforce, I want them to be able to do that right here in our own backyard, because I think there's something special about that. So I did that. I won that election in November 2016, which was cool. It was a really interesting experience. I'll tell this story really quick because I think it's pertinent to just dealing with negativity and just dealing with tough situations in general, I guess. So I was running my election. My oldest son was born October 31st of 2016. So that was on a Monday. My election was the following Tuesday, which I guess would have been November the 8th of 2016. Our oldest son, our oldest 2 sons are adopted. Our oldest son, both of them were born in Jacksonville, Florida. So we're in Jacksonville, my wife and I, and because of this whole interstate compact, which is basically like you can't take the child out of their home state until all the paperwork is cleared in the state, you got to stay there. So like 3 weeks we were down there for both of them. And so I literally get on a plane on Monday, the day before the election. He's a week old. My wife's in Jacksonville staying in a condo. Fly back to Greenville, come back to Anderson. I'm up all night that night putting out signs at the precincts because you can't, there's certain rules with elections, like you can't put out those signs until like right before the election because there's schools and things like that. So I'm up till I think 4 o'clock in the morning just putting signs out. Go back to my house. I sleep from like 4:30 to like 6 a.m. I get up because I want to be at the precincts when they first open. I think they open at 7 or 7:30. I don't remember now. And I literally made my rounds all day long. I think it was 7 a.m. because I think it closed at 7 p.m. All day long, just hitting different precincts, just talking to people like, hey, I'm running for school board. I appreciate your support. Answer any questions you have. Just doing what you're supposed to do, working it. And I go to lunch at JC's, home of the bird dog, right? If you come to Anderson, you got to go to JC's and get a bird dog.
Got to.
Do you want to tell them what a bird dog is? They didn't even know what a bird dog is.
You don't know what a bird dog is, Preston?
It's like it's a chicken and a hot dog.
Exactly.
Bun?
It's fried chicken and a hot dog bun with melted cheese and
bacon and honey mustard.
And now they do different sauces.
That's right.
But honey mustard is the OG, but you got to get extra honey mustard. You got to order the large side of honey mustard.
Sounds amazing.
And you got to get a double bird dog plate.
That's right.
Where are we going?
We'll go tomorrow and we'll go tonight. And you dip it in. Like you already got honey mustard on it, but you just like lather that thing in honey mustard. They got the best fries. Now the ambiance is interesting, right? The best restaurants.
Well, that's what you want.
Well, yeah, that's
right.
It's
what you want. Yeah, that's right.
That's how you know it's good. I always say the best restaurants in Anderson. The ambiance. I'm like, come on, guys, we could paint the walls a little bit. Even the Corner Bagel. I know they moved.
Yeah,
but Corner Bagel and JC's. There's a lot of great restaurants in Anderson. Arnold's. I could go through the whole list. Skins. But yeah, you gotta get
so election day at lunch, I'm going to get my bird dog, and I'm actually getting it to go because I'm not trying to miss a second at the precincts, right? So I'm like eating in my car, going to the next precinct, and I see a lady in there that I know her. I don't know her super well, but I know her well enough to like speak to her, and so I stop and just say hello, kind of go on my way. Fast forward that night, Tuesday night, win the election. It was really cool, really exciting. Thank you. It was a pretty cool feeling. Wednesday, getting on the plane in Greenville to fly back to Jacksonville to be with my wife and newborn son, and I'm scrolling through social media, and I see a post on Facebook from a lady who I'd seen the day before, basically to the effect of like, I cannot believe that this town chose to elect a commercial real estate agent to be on the school board. What were y'all thinking?
Oh, here we go.
And this was like my first kind of interaction with like, whoa, that's a little bit weird. Like, number one, that she would post that. And number two, that I saw her less than 24 hours ago and we had a good conversation. And so that was sort of my like welcome into politics. And now, I think you almost get immune to it a little bit. But did 4 years on school board and it was really great. We did a lot of really good things, built some really nice facilities. We've got first class athletics and academics and for the arts and things like that in District 5. Some things I'm really proud that I was a part of. The new career center that was built, a $30 million project. To teach kids welding and different soft skills that get them into the workforce sooner and helps with economic development. It was exciting to be a part of all that. But just kind of felt like I've never been one that believed in just kind of like getting into a seat and just staying there forever. So like I did 4 years and kind of felt like that had run its course and was thinking it was time for something different. And so ran for county council in 2020. We do 2-year terms, got elected to that seat, and I've served 2 years on that, and I just got reelected to my second term. So I'm a little over 2 years into that. And, it's been a lot of fun. So, I love Anderson. I love Anderson County. I'm passionate about it. I want to see us succeed. I've said for a long time that Anderson has always been too big enough to get opportunities, but small enough to get our own way. Yep. And so for me, when I ran, it's like, hey, we don't have to like reinvent the wheel here. Let's just not get in our own way. And so I think that's that's a good lesson, I think, just in general, is how often do we get opportunities, but whether we're not prepared or because of our perception or whatever the case may be, we get in our own way. We keep ourselves from succeeding, having the success that we really could have. And so county council has been fun. It's been way different, way more difficult, way more time consuming than I thought it would have been.
Yeah.
And we've got a lot of things right now that are hot button issues, particularly when it talks about real estate. And I'll just tell you this. This
You heard it here first, everybody.
Yeah, well, this is uncomfortable to talk about because, but it's part of it. It's real.
Sure.
And so not last night, but the meeting before, we had a project. My company had the property listed, okay? And not me personally, but it was one of the guys in my office. And we had a group out of Florida, and they were going to come invest about $70 million on about a 300-unit nice apartment complex, okay? Going to generate about $1.5 million a year in property tax revenue to Anderson County. Wow. We have a major housing shortage in this community, okay? We have a housing attainability, affordability, whatever you want to call it. We have that here, okay? We have to provide more housing for people to be able to get that back in line to where it needs to be. It's got to be a quality product, and this is going to be a quality product. I recuse myself because, again, my company 100% has it listed. I don't need to vote on this or be a part of the discussion. And there was, 25 people probably that showed up to speak. Most of them spoke against it because they lived in the area and they didn't want to see anything happen. They liked the woods. Yeah. And one of the other guys had to recuse himself, and he got shot down 3-2. And so for me, that was tough because, I'm sitting there going, man, like, if it's a bad project, shoot it down. I don't really care if our name's on it or not. If it's a good project, let's see it through. And, but again, that's not me throwing shade at anybody on council that voted a certain way. Like, that's just me saying, like, hey, what can I do to help us be better and be more intentional and proactive about providing quality housing as a community that also makes people feel comfortable when there's development close by.
Yep.
So there's a lot of things like that are being balanced because we've got a great community. We added over 500 jobs in Anderson County alone last year that were very good quality, high-paying jobs. But jobs without housing really doesn't support a community.
Exactly.
Right? Like, the worst thing we could have is somebody lives in Greenville County, drives to Anderson to work, and then goes home.
Yep.
They need to put their bed here and sleep. They need to go shop here. They need to spend money here, eat here, and dine here. So, I think for us as a county, we're a little bit of a fork in the road and trying to figure all that out, the balancing act of, like, we're growing, but how do we grow the right way? And so being a part of those discussions, especially in our business, has been kind of interesting.
Yeah, no, I'd say it sounds like you may need younger visionaries to hop on in some other zones. I don't know. You may have to fill in the hat. No, I'm joking.
What zone is this?
Yeah, do you live in my district? No, I'm just kidding.
I'm not in John's
No, you're not.
district.
You're not.
No, I'm in somebody else's district.
That's right.
But I'm gonna be. Hopefully, we'll stay out of that.
Yeah.
Is this a campaign launch?
Yeah,
guys, I want to.
I heard it here first.
I think it is.
I want to announce my candidacy for.
There you go. That's right.
No, but it's always been like that here. And that's what's so exciting about having guys like yourself on council is you're still running into roadblocks, as you just saw with this. But the more folks we can get on,
that's right,
in leadership and all leadership roles in the county who have the vision that folks like yourself do, because it's coming.
It is 100%.
It's coming.
Yep.
And so you can't delay the inevitable, but it is. Why not reap the benefits now? I mean,
That's
FedEx
exactly
put
right.
that massive thing there. We got Arthrex in town.
Absolutely.
TTI. Exactly.
I toured TTI's facility. It is pretty mind-blowing. It's like 630 acres, 5 million square feet, and 3,500 employees. Yeah, what a huge economic engine that is. But again, we need those people living here and helping to invest in our community. So, it's funny. Before I came here, I had the opportunity. Did you do junior leadership at Anderson?
I did not.
Okay, so I went through it 18 years ago, 2005, and got to go. They do a local government day. And so they had these kids, they're juniors in high school, basically, and they kind of learn about the community, and they take a day out. I think it's one day a month where they get to, not go to school. Instead, they're out and about in the community, learning about different facets of Anderson. So today was their local government day. So we had them in the council chambers, and just getting a chance to explain to them like what local government does and what it is was really a lot of fun and a great experience for me. But it's funny because like we had one of them that was asking about like the debt ceiling and the federal government. I'm like, hey, from a macro level, like I definitely think we've got some issues, but we live in a really, really good part of the country, upstate South Carolina, and we are really blessed. And I think, I couldn't be more bullish on this area. I think we've got a lot of really good things happening, and it's fun to be a part of. But with growth, obviously, comes challenge, and you got to be able to balance all that. So all that to say, council's been fun. One of the most freeing things, though, is I don't need it. I'm not beholden to that seat. I can vote my conscience and do what I feel is the best thing for Anderson. And I had this conversation actually today talking to this kid and said, hey, if it gets me beat, great. Because I've got a great career. I've got a great company. I've got a great family that this takes me away from. I didn't get home last night until after 8 o'clock because of our meeting. Wow. My boys were in bed when I got home. You know what I mean? So like I lose that time twice a month, at least for those meetings. And so it's like, I do it because I care. Yep. I don't do it because I've got some hidden agenda, or I used to have aspirations to maybe run for another office. I don't know. Maybe not. Like I think just settled in lately. I'm 35 and I feel like I've just gotten to this place lately where like just being comfortable, but not complacent, right? Yeah. So like comfortable where I am, with where my feet are planted, and maximizing whatever opportunities the Lord gives me, but not feeling this need of like always, having to. It lets me just kind of be totally transparent and open and let the chips fall where they may. You know,
I think that's the problem. Good. So many people get into government, and their eyes are already on what can I do next.
Absolutely.
How do I actually make an impact, right?
No doubt.
That's like the whole issue. And like local politics is where things happen.
Oh, yeah.
That's going to have more impact on you than any of this stuff that they're talking about
exactly
last
right.
night.
You're exactly right. It's really, I think, local government is where you can really make change and what really has the biggest impact on your day-to-day life. So, I encourage people. I think it's good for people to get involved. We need business people involved. Yep. That's the other thing I said. It's like, hey, I have a conflict of interest on this. I'm not going to vote on it. And you know what? I'm going to probably have other conflicts of interest. You know why? Because I'm involved, I'm a business owner, and I'm doing something. Yep. So unless you want a bunch of old retired people up here,
hemming and hawing.
Yeah, like you're going to have conflicts. We're not in Manhattan. Anderson is still a relatively small community. Like if you want guys that are involved, there's going to be conflicts, and that's okay as long as everybody recuses themselves and doesn't take part in the action. Yep. But anyway, it's been a learning experience for me for sure. And something that I'm appreciative of. I appreciate the opportunity to serve. I don't take that lightly. It means a lot that, the folks that live in my district would be willing to trust me enough to put me in that seat. So that's awesome.
That's really cool.
That's really cool. What, and we'll wrap this thing up, but I want to ask you a couple personal real estate questions.
Okay,
so
love it.
I know you do the commercial.
Yep.
You got the whole company. It's absolutely crushing it.
Yep.
But tell us a story. It could be your first deal or one of them early on of you personally buying. Like, how did you get into your personal portfolio? Which I know we talked. I think we were like unloading our kids out of the soccer field.
Yeah, that's right.
You're
that's
like,
right.
Yeah, I pretty much offloaded a lot of my personal stuff because the business is growing. But I know you were in. I bought a property.
Yeah, that's
from
kind of
like,
I reconnected through that. Yeah. Really, I think it was 3 years ago.
Yeah,
that's right.
Westwind. It's been a great property.
So that was actually my first property.
Was it really? So I bought your first property.
You did. I was 19 years old. 210 Westwind, and same tenant. Is she still in there?
She passed away.
Did she really?
She passed away last year. Had no family either.
Really?
I got a story on that. I'll let you go ahead.
Okay, I want to hear because when I bought that property, I think it was 2000. Well, okay, I said I was 19, so it was like 2006. Anyway, from 2006 when I bought it and did some work to it and moved her in there in maybe 2007 to you bought it 18, 19?
18, yeah, probably 19.
19.
I think 19 is right.
She was in there the whole time, and I guess until she passed away last year.
Yeah,
last year. Which is crazy. So bought that. My dad, again, who I was very fortunate to be able to learn a lot from, and still do. He used to take me to the auctions, the courthouse steps, and that was really my just cutting my teeth on just kind of learning the business a little bit. And he helped me kind of bid on this house and end up buying it, and that was and I was able to get a personal loan. I convinced somebody to give me a personal loan for the money because I didn't have the money. I was in college, but understood at least enough that it's the blocking and tackling of real estate. Like, if my payment is $500 a month, and I got tax and insurance and all that, but if I can rent it for $850 a month, I can retire the debt and I can put some money in my pocket each month. Man, that's a great deal.
No brainer.
It really is, right? And so that was sort of my initial thing. But obviously, being in college and playing football, I really wasn't able to touch real estate again until I think 2000. I got out of college December of 2010. I think bought my next property in 2011. Was actually a house, an estate auction that my grandfather had built and owned in a partnership. Bought it at the auction, complete gutted and renovated it, and then rented out again. So then I had 2. And then bought. I'll tell you a funny story. You asked. This is kind of a really good one to share. So then this was 2012. Go to another estate auction, 2304 East North Avenue.
Yep.
Right there near Lindley Park, and I'm at the auction, and the house, really cool, historic district. needed a lot of work. Bought it for $60,000, 10% buyer's premium. I think it was $66,254 was the final price. And I'm like, man, this is it. I got it. Like, this is number 3, right? So I've still got the first 2. I'm adding my third one. I'm about to get married. I'm 24, I guess. Like, I'm like, this is it. Feeling good, right?
You're crushing it.
And I called my wife, or my fiance at the time. I said, guess what? I just bought a house. She's like, you did what? She thought I'd been to live in. I'm like, no. Like, and then she still thought I was crazy. And I said, well, if it doesn't work, we'll just move in and live in there, right? And she's like, I don't even know where it is or what you're talking about. I was like, we'll talk at dinner tonight, Yeah. But what's cool is I had a guy offer me $30,000 to assign the contract. All right. I'm like, man, that's a lot of money.
24 years old.
24. $30,000 to basically sign a paper.
Yeah, and then what that means is that guy was going to pay John $30,000 to give him that contract instead of John closing it on that property. So that guy wanted that property bad enough, and he felt like John had it under contract at a good enough deal that he could pay John an additional $30,000 to take over and close on that property.
That's right. So I made, I think, like $21,000 my first year in real estate, like commission only. So 30,000 is like, man, I could. My wife was teaching, or she was going to be teaching that year, to make 32,000. So this is a lot of money. But being the smart 24-year-old real estate mogul I am, I say, hey, man, thanks, but no thanks. Wow, I got this.
You walked away?
Yeah, because I knew what I was doing, right?
Wow.
So
that's intense.
So I'm like, well, because in my head, I'm like, okay, bought it for 66. I probably spend, 30, 40 grand, and it'll probably retail for like 160, right? So I'm like, 30, 60, 60's more, right? So I'm a finance major. I can figure this out. So close on the house, get a contractor who, and contractor's probably, that might be a stretch. He was a handyman. Okay. So because again, it was all about cost for me, right? I know what I'm doing, do it as cheap as I can, make as much money as I can. And so get this guy, and he does some stuff or whatever, and it looks pretty good. Go under contract, right? Feeling good. It's I think it was like 150 or something like that, 155. Good spread. Well, what do people do when they buy a house? Home inspection, right?
Oh boy.
So they start doing the home, and I didn't know, I just knew his price was better. So to me, that was what I was doing, and didn't know a whole lot about his qualifications or lack thereof, I guess I should say. And they find some stuff, and I'm like, I didn't know that was there. So okay, well, I'll fix that, right? Yeah, okay. Well, we're still not going to move forward. My sister owns a residential real estate company. She said, well, hey, you need to fix that regardless if somebody buys it or not. All right, sure. So $5,000. I'm still in the good, though. All right, so next buyer comes along. Put under contract, home inspection. Something else comes up. It's like, oh, geez, okay. They're not comfortable moving forward. So then I got to put a little more money into it. All right. Mind you, the interest clock's running the whole time, right? So I'll never forget, for the third time, the house goes under contract and it doesn't close. And I will never forget, I was living at Watermark Condos up on Clemson Boulevard at the time. My wife and I were. And because this is now into the next year, and I'm driving home, and I just remember being like, I just had this deal fall apart yet again. And I just remember, so I'm a Christian. I believe that faith is it's a huge part of my life and my journey and who I am. And I think that in order to be the best version of myself I can be, I need the guidance of the Lord. So I'm driving back home and just had a tough day at work. Contract fell through for the third time on this house. And I'm just like, Lord, what? And, probably as clear as I've ever heard his voice before. He's like, I'm letting you deal with this on a $150,000 deal because I'm preparing for $1.5 million deal.
Wow.
And I remember being like, okay, and that's hard to stomach right now because this thing feels like it's going to break me.
Yeah.
And so go home and kind of fast forward, just end up getting a guy that was a contractor, say, hey man, I don't know what I'm doing. I'm going to admit it. I thought I did. I don't. I need you to do a full blown. Actually, I got a third party inspection done. So tell me everything that's wrong with this house. Got a contractor. Hey, tell me everything I do to fix it. $20,000. All right. So now 125 probably I got in it. End up putting her contract 145, paid commissions and some closing costs. Probably netted 130 some odd. Made $6-7 grand on the deal. Could have made 30 with no work.
No work.
Took a year and a half, and 3 deals falling through to make 7. At that point, I learned, as the saying goes, it's hard to go broke making a profit. And so And sure enough, fast forward 2 years, I acquired and redeveloped an old shopping center. And 3 days before we were supposed to close on it, was about $1 million. It was $1.2 million, I think, deal. Biggest one I'd done in my career to that point. And 3 days before closing, the bank pulled their commitment. And I was sick. Had $100,000 of hard money up that I was going to lose by not closing on this deal in time. That's the first time I've ever gotten physically sick on a deal. Like I told you, I got sick on that Series 7 test.
Yeah.
I actually got physically sick because I didn't have I put 100,000 in. I didn't have like another 100 sitting around.
Yeah.
Like that was going to be, I don't know what I was going to do. Well, had a really good partner and mentor, fortunately, that was in that deal with me. And he had some good ideas. And so we ended up getting the owner to carry back the property. We closed on time, said, hey, if you didn't know anything on it, he carried back 10% interest. This is, when rates were 3 and 4%.
Yeah.
So we paid a premium. He was like, I'll give you, 3 months, figure it out. And so we go to work. We're renovating the space for a Dollar Tree tenant to move in. So we were on a clock with them. And so all kind of moving parts. But what it forced me to do is think outside the box and get creative and become solution oriented, which I think is also so important, especially in our business where the ones that go smooth, go right, don't get to the finish line, right? Like we always said, none of them are easy, but you have to figure out a way to be creative and figure out a way to persevere through in order to get to the closing table and make the deal happen. And so I think the more you can learn that, the more you can stretch your mind to find those solutions, the better you become in deal making. So, it was kind of a good learning lesson for me in a couple regards and really a cool lesson to kind of see come full circle and go back to what we started this whole thing with, which is not quitting.
Don't give up.
I could have thrown in the towel on either one of those deals, and a number of deals ever since that didn't go how I thought they were going to go. But that idea of perseverance, not giving up, and pushing through it, and making it happen is what it's all about.
That's awesome. And practical application for you guys listening for real estate tips, and I think John would probably agree on this. That was years ago on the home you did, the $150,000 home. It is always good to get a home inspection off the bat. And
every time.
We usually, because I'm burning a lot of properties.
Yeah.
And so we usually will go ahead and fix those major items that will ding on a home inspection
Smart.
later, because why not? We bought it at a low enough
You got to do it anyway.
to where we can do it with somebody else's money. You're going to have to do it at some point. Unless you sell it to another investor.
Sure.
You probably get away with it, but you go ahead, knock it out on the front end. Would you agree?
Yeah, absolutely, man. I think that's very, very wise. Is that is the smart thing to do, because that way and it's, again, this whole idea of if you stay ready, you don't have to get ready. Well, I was trying to get ready, right? I wasn't prepared for that opportunity, to be candid. And so, I think that's super important. And then I'll say this, fast forward for probably 4 years later, I got offered $100,000 on an assignment. I took it. Learned my lesson. I was I jerked his arm off, because it was I've been down this road before.
Yeah.
And my gut was even no, you can make more if you do it yourself. Nah, just take it,
That's a good profit. I mean, and guys, $100,000 assignment doesn't happen every day, okay?
It's never happened to me again. Just FYI, in 11 years of the business, it's happened once. That was, and it was on it was probably $1 million property, so it was economy of scale there, obviously.
Yeah, that's really cool. Well, we'll wrap this thing up.
Yeah,
what is one piece of real estate advice you give to people just getting started? What would be your tip or two?
Yeah, I would say a couple things. Take action. I think a lot of people, we talk about this idea of preparation, and that's important, but some people prepare, but never actually take action. And the only way you're ever going to figure it out is by doing something. I always tell people, I actually studied finance and real estate in school, but I learned more in the first year of working in the business than I did my 4.5 years in school ever taught me. And so I think there's an element of at some point, you just got to do something. You got to make the jump. And I think that's so important. The other thing I will say, which kind of contradicts what I just said, is I'm a big believer in penciling out. You can't pencil enough deals. I used to get online and I'd go through 20 properties at night, and I'd look at the asking price, I'd look at the P&L, I'd look at the NOI and the cap rate, and I would literally pencil it out based on the debt I thought I could get, and see if it made sense for me. Even if I knew I couldn't do the deal, even if it was one that was way too big for me and I couldn't afford it, the practicality of that, which allowed me to then be quicker, when I saw something, I didn't have to go through all that because I kind of knew where I needed to be.
Yeah,
sure.
And so I think just getting into that mindset of always being aware of the opportunities that are out there and not being afraid to pencil something out, and then ultimately not being afraid to take action, because I think that's really what it comes down to. And that's just, I think, critical in life in general. You know, a lot of times I think we are our own worst enemy. We make things out to be more daunting and more scary and more difficult than they actually are. But you can figure out a lot when you decide you're going to go for it. Not anything holds you back.
Yeah, that's great advice.
And I think it's cool to see. You know, you look. I get this, you know, with DMs from people on Instagram all the time. Like people seeing where I'm at. You're like, oh my gosh, it must be so nice. Well, you know, we had to start somewhere.
That's right.
We talked about that last night.
Yeah, you got to start somewhere. And then you look at what you did. John was analyzing and buying single family homes.
Yep, 100%.
Now he's going in and he's doing multi-million-dollar massive projects. But he built that foundation of getting started.
The fundamentals are still the same.
Principles are the exact same.
Yeah.
That's what I tell people all the time. Like, hey, man, at the end of the day, you got rent.
Chips
and
are just bigger.
Yep. And I don't care if Publix is paying you rent or that lady in Westwind's paying you rent. And at the end of the day, you got expenses. And it's property taxes, it's insurance, it's maintenance and repairs, it's camp, like whatever. Like, the numbers may be a little bit bigger, but the principles and the fundamentals are the exact same.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah. And so if you can learn those, you'll be successful.
Absolutely.
Well, man, we really appreciate you being on.
Thank
this.
y'all.
It's been great.
It's been a blast. I can't thank y'all for having me on. Like, honestly, I could sit here. I feel like it just have this conversation all day long. I can talk shop all day. So this has been great. Like, football and real estate are kind of my two favorite things.
We'll have to have you back.
So, yeah, that'd be good. Yeah, that'd be good. I really appreciate it.
Where can folks find you if they want to?
Yeah, so I'm on Instagram, Facebook, Twitter, LinkedIn, all those things. We were talking before. I took a little bit of a hiatus from some social media avenues for about 6 weeks, but kind of getting back on. So, and then our company, McCoy Wright, we're on all the social media as well. Google McCoy Wright, McCoyWright. Anderson, you can find us online or pretty much any of the social media avenues. So, and I just want to say too, man, thank y'all for having me. Jaron, I appreciate what you're doing. Like I was telling somebody the other day, I think we all have a responsibility to give back, and we all have a responsibility to bring people along, and you're doing that with this show and with the content that you're putting out in your coaching network. And like, that's really what it's all about, because like, you know, with success comes responsibility, and you're taking that responsibility seriously, and I appreciate it. So thank y'all again.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Absolutely.
This was a blast.
Yep.
Thank you so much for listening in. If you love this episode, it would mean the world to me if you would share it with a friend right now, or if you would go on social media and make sure you tag me so I can thank you personally for helping me to get this message out. I want you to know that I am so darn grateful for you and grateful that I am on this journey with you. So until next time, we'll talk soon.